Eagles cornerback Quinyon Mitchell is on his way to becoming an elite lockdown corner, but he's not there yet.
Welcome to the Scouting Room Podcast with Dame and Dan. If you love NFL football, college football, and the NFL Draft, this podcast is for you. Touchdown! Dame and Dan will provide real analysis featuring analytics and film to back up their takes. Please sit down, grab your drink, and let's scout.
Welcome back to the Scouting Room NFL Podcast with Dame and Dan. I'm Dame, offensive NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report and the host of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. That's my guy, Dan. He is an NFL and NFL draft analyst over with RGR Football, covering the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, this is the Scouting Room Podcast with Dame and Dan. And guys, we have a fun one for you. We will be discussing Quinyon Mitchell, the star corner for the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Indianapolis Colts young edge rusher, Laiatu Latu. But let's talk about the, crazy enough, he won the Super Bowl in year one, cornerback Quinyon Mitchell, a guy that, you know, at the combine, he came in with 6 foot, about 200 pounds. Danny ran a 4.33 in the 40. Jumped 38 inches, had a 1.51 10-yard split. Like everything when it came down to Quinyon Mitchell, like the athleticism, the makeup speed, the explosiveness, all of the stuff that he did at the combine, it translated to the NFL. And I must say, for me, you know, I spent time with him at the Senior Bowl last January. And I remember, you know, I interviewed him, talked with him off air, stuff like that. Great dude, very level-headed young man, but not just level-headed, Dan. He's very instinctive in terms of as a football player, which I know as we get ready to get into what he does well, he's instinctive, he studies, and he's a very hard worker. So, like, the things that you want from your star corner, he brings. And he plays a lot on the outside. And at Toledo, I remember talking to him. He said, man, one of the things he was doing at the Senior Bowl that last year was, I'm trying to get my man coverage technique down. I'm testing things out because we run so much cover 4 at Toledo. He never really had the opportunity to truly just develop and learn. And some of the notes I had, insane eye discipline. This from zone. He has zone eyes. He plays well from depth, reads route concepts well, processes information quickly, explosive trigger downhill. He attacks downhill with aggression. I don't know if there's a lot of times we talk about corners and you don't see guys that want to tackle. Like if you throw a wide receiver screen in his direction, oh yeah, he's going to hit your receiver. He blew multiple wide receiver screens up and quick screens and smoke screens and everything. Recovery speed is outstanding. You rarely see him out of phase, and if he is out of phase, Dan, he's not out of phase for long. So the quarterback, if your receiver gets over the top of Quinyon, you got to get that ball out early because he can make up speed. He can play in, that's one thing I'm big on with corners. Not so much how, of course, we care about how you play in phase. How do you play out of phase? Do you panic? Are you rushed? Are you worried? He's not concerned. He understands I get caught up with my guy, and then I look for the football, man. He plays a lot of cover 4. He uses catch technique a lot in off-man coverage. Outstanding ball skills. There was, I think it was the playoff game against the Commanders? Because I feel like they played the Commanders 3 times last year. And
they did.
In one of the games, Jayden Daniels threw a goal ball to Terry McLaurin. I think it was the playoff game. And he zone turned, squeezed him to the sideline, located the ball, went up over Terry, and just caught the ball. And you would have thought it was a basketball alley-oop. He looked like the receiver on the play, Dan. So, like, just for me, man, I don't think he's elite. I don't think he's an elite lockdown guy yet, but I do believe he's on his way.
Yeah, one of the things you want him to do a little bit more of, maybe we'll see it more in year 2, is when he is in press coverage like he was against the Commanders in the playoffs. I think he played what was close to maybe 50 or 60%, maybe even 70% of his snaps when he lined up against McLaurin were in press coverage. Get your hands on a little bit more. Be a little bit more physical. reroute, disrupt the timing of the play. But we saw that at the Senior Bowl. We know he wants to do that. So you do have to take away some of those techniques, at least early on in your rookie season, to get more accustomed to the defense. And what we did see from that defense was you're going to play on the right side of the defense. You're going to play a lot of zone. You're going to play off. We're going to allow your eyes to funnel you to the football. And one of the biggest translators to this were his yards after catch allowed. Last year, as the nearest defender, he allowed 1.5 yards after the catch, the best number in the NFL. The next closest was Pat Surtain, who we've seen that happen, right? We saw that happening since
year.
Yeah, exactly. Like we saw that at Alabama. We saw it here in the NFL early on for him. And this is exactly what Quinyon's doing. I think the difference is he's been doing it with more of a zone feel. Pastor Shane can do both, but he was like that aggressive man coverage player. Yeah. You saw that happen. But Quinyon played a lot of zone at Toledo, and everyone's like, well, he can't play man. And obviously at the Senior Bowl, we saw him do just that. We saw him be able to use some of those techniques. So when you see the ability to just always be around the football, it's not always translating into, break up passes or interceptions or things like that. It's yards after the catch. I don't care if you allow a catch underneath. How quickly are you on the receiver to limit those things? One of the, when you think about the Eagles on the opposite side, what do they want to do? They want to get into 3rd and short and 4th and short so that they can get their QB sneak. Well, what happens if you limit yards after catch? So a catch that's behind the line of scrimmage doesn't go anywhere, or one that's into the flat doesn't go anywhere. They can't get those yards. Offenses can't get easy yards to get those first downs and keep the chains moving. He is consistently forcing offenses to have to go up and around. The only thing for me when I was watching his tape that I'm just like, okay, it's a rookie. You're going to have some things. NFL speed's different, right? NFL speed's a whole different thing. There were times where you saw him get backpedaled a little bit too much, and then those quick out routes would get him. I think Darnell Mooney had a couple of good ones against him from the Falcons last year. That out route seemed to be the one route that he was like, fine, you want it, you go ahead and do that. There was another deep ball from Terry McLaurin in the regular season where I don't know if it was his fault necessarily, because it looked like he was shaded inside with inside leverage, but she just ran a go route and yeah, he just it wasn't there. Like there was too much space. So some of that is either technique or it's just shading of the safeties or where he's supposed to be responsibility wise. But when you mentioned going into the postseason, how they altered that, he was allowed to really run towards the sideline and change some of that. So again, we're talking about those yards after catch on deep targets. It was 2.5 yards on anything 10 to 19, 1.2. So he was just everywhere in hip pockets. No one was getting separation from him. And then on those deep targets too, he allowed it was a 53.8% on tight window percentage. So he's creating tight window throws. And then everything underneath, 22.7.
It's
so
not to cut
we
off.
talk.
It's
go for it.
It's just kind of funny when you say numbers like that, and you hear this is a rookie. This is a rookie. And then I want to put in context for a lot of people, right? A lot of our fans and the listeners, you hear people talk about come draft season. Oh, this guy played. Oh, he played at a small school, right? He didn't play in the SEC. Well, let's kind of look at the situation. Cooper DeJean, who's his teammate, played at Iowa, Big Ten, right? Cool. He played at Toledo. Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Ennis Rakestraw, like all those guys were SEC guys. They had worse years, and I think Ennis Rakestraw ended up getting hurt, stuff like that. Missed most of the season. But Terrion Arnold had a very down season for the Detroit Lions. So in coverage, and I think he's going to be better. He's a high instinct, high caliber guy. He's a really good player. He's going to be fine. You know what I mean? and whatever this scheme that they're going to run now with Aaron Glenn now being in New York as the new head coach of the Jets. But yeah, to see those numbers, and I'm going to throw out a couple other numbers at you as well, and for the listeners, he allowed just throughout the season, 25% of his targets were tight window throws.
Yeah,
25%. He had a ball hawk percentage of 16% roughly. He was targeted 76 times, allowed 43 receptions, 479 yards receiving, 3 receiving touchdowns. And to kind of, just kind of go a little bit further into that when you was talking about the deep throws, he was targeted 13 times 20 yards down the field, only allowed 4 catches. And the crazy thing about it is when you look at those 4 receptions, they weren't true man coverage receptions. And to your point, talking about the backpedal, one thing I put down in my notes on the show sheet when it pertains to him, and I want to see him improve, is that he has a tendency at times to carry routes too long. Right,
Yeah.
I think it was week 1 against Green Bay. They ran. It was a trip set to his side. They Christian Watson was the X. I think it was Jaden Reed was the inside receiver, not the slot, but the 3 closest to the formation. They ran a scissors concept. You got a deep post from the outside receiver from the X. You have a corner from Jaden Reed. Right, he's carrying, and it's just it was just communication. The times that he did get beat deep, it was just to me it looked like pure miscommunication between him and the deep safety. To where it's like, hey, I'm gonna pass this guy off to you, or it was him not trusting that his safety was going to be over the top. Reed Blankenship is there for you. Don't worry, pass it off and go take this corner route. Instead, on that play, I think they gained it was like a 20 some odd yard completion. And Jaden Reed was wide open. It was because Quinyon was carrying the post, into the safety's territory, right? But it was that, okay, I'm a rookie. It's my first time. And when I was still at the Draft Network, I wrote an article after he was drafted that him and Cooper DeJean were perfect fits for Vic Fangio's zone-heavy scheme, cover 3, cover 4. Like, they play it perfectly. And I think that's where he's got and, we talked about, you mentioned it, in-man coverage. Use your hands. Disrupt timing. Too many free releases. Because that, and I was watching the Cowboys tape. Jonathan Mingo got him on a comeback route, on a curl route. The receiver Brooks, I think was his last name. He got him on a deep comeback route. And it's like you have to, you got to disrupt that timing. He tends to, because he has that recovery speed, not that he freelances, but his zone turns a little bit too much for me. Like, I don't want your zone turning unless you really have to. But he'll zone turn out of there. And he almost tries to anticipate and not guess, but he just anticipates on those comeback routes. He tries to look for the ball. Once he has this guy squeezed to the sideline, he's like, oh, well, if the ball's coming, it's coming. It should be on the way now. Yeah. And that's how he got beat on by Brooks on the deep comeback. And Brooks had him going upfield, and Brooks was working back downhill. He's got to stay attached to the receiver's hip. If he does that consistently going into this year in 2025, man, the sky's the limit for this kid. Because with him being able to be in the place of the football, I want to see him now make because I believe he created turnovers at Toledo. When you start closing on those click and close situations where he's driving, make the play, intercept the ball, create that turnover, and take it away.
You saw a couple of times, too, where the football IQ, he sees the ball being thrown before it's thrown, and he clicks on that throw. He just doesn't come away with it. We also saw C.J. Gardner-Johnson take one away from him, too. Like, he went and go to catch it, and then here comes C.J. He's just coming to kind of put himself in the way there. There's multiple times where you see the football IQ, the click and close, and the athleticism all come together, and it's like, yeah, that's why he's here. That's why he plays in this zone-heavy scheme. Not that he can't play man. He was still very good in man. You just saw more times where the back pedal, I think he can get a little bit too high. Shoulders come back a little bit too much, and that's where the back pedal and those receivers that break back to the football are going to get him more often than not. You get him leaning back just a little bit, you could start to move left, right, and that's where you see just the little breaks there. That's something that can be cleaned up. But overall, when he's just waiting, he can see eyes, he can see the quarterback. It's pretty much as soon as that break is coming, he's anticipating. We know how receivers and quarterbacks have to anticipate windows. He's doing the same thing, anticipating throws, knowing route combinations, being able to pass off at times here and then taking his route there. But all it comes down to is that with the guy that has the ball skills that he does, the ability to turn his head and not lose speed, that's really what this is downfield, because you see a lot of guys when they turn to track the football, they slow down. They have to think, right? They have to think, okay, where am I? Where's the sideline? Where's the receiver? Where's the football? You see all that coming down. He doesn't ever panic, and that's why he doesn't lose speed. He's always in the right spot and he gains speed. Honestly, he gains speed going downfield. You saw that multiple times where he's able to use that 4.3 speed and explosive nature to close the gap when he is beat. There was a play against the Saints along the left sideline. He got beat by Rashid Shaheed on an out and up, and he closed the gap. It's a slightly underthrown ball. Still, he was able to close that gap and make the play and be able to cause break up that pass. So the tools are all there. We want to see a little more physicality. Obviously, he's great in run support. No issues there at any stretch, any whatsoever. So you actually don't have to worry about him. He just has to get some of these little fine-tuned aspects of his man coverage game, and then maybe not always freelancing a little bit and carrying some of these routes a little bit too often and being more robotic in some of them. Obviously, you still want him to be that fluid athlete, being able to still freelance at times, but within the structure of the defense and of the route concept. I think that's the big thing here, is that be able to flow with the route concepts, not always taking your responsibility to the safety and then passing off there, but flowing and then changing those directions. But he's so good, man. He was so much fun to watch.
He's heading in the right direction, and that's why I wanted to close out this talk before we get to Laiatu Latu for the Indianapolis Colts. Now Darius Slay, they let him go after the season, won the Super Bowl. They went ahead and cut bait with the long-term veteran who was their true man-to-man specialist for years among years during his time in Philadelphia. Now Quinyon is the guy that's the proven outside corner. When you look at, for example, you go to PFF, you look at their lineup, their starting offense and defense in nickel, or not even just in nickel. They're starting outside corners is Quinyon Mitchell and my guy Keely Ringo from Georgia, with Cooper DeJean manning the slot. How do you feel about Quinyon? Do you think he'll be able to handle the pressure this year of being CB1 for the Philadelphia Eagles now that the veteran Darius Slay is no longer there?
Yeah, I think that's the big question, right? And obviously everything we've seen is that he doesn't back down. The reason that I'm so confident is because we saw that at Toledo when he played against Marvin Harrison Jr. He didn't back down from the competition level. He knew the physicality was coming. Yeah, he got beat a few times, never put his head down. He's got that quick memory loss. If he gets beat, it's over. But when you just go back to week one, it's week one. I know it's Christian Watson. He's not a great player in the NFL. He's been hurt a ton, but he's John in the end zone to these guys. As a rookie, he does not care. He's not going to back down. He's going to be able to take over as the guy. I think, honestly, he was last year. I mean, let's be honest. Darius Slay lost a little bit of a step last year too, and Quinyon was one of the best corners in football. So I'm not worried about it. And like you said, when you have that dog built into the mentality and the way you play, it's just natural to let it slip on the field like that.
To close it out, man, I remember sitting and talking with him, and he's so stoic. He's so confident. I remember asking him, I was like, when are you going to run at the combine? And he was like, I'm going to break it. I'm going to break some regs. I'm going to break some people's perceptions of me and different things of that nature. And, I remember talking to him, like him, remember he called out Roman Wilson at the end of practice one day, like, and he was just like, I slipped, and I was like, man, like, but he's so self-aware. Like, if he messes up, like, he knows it. And as from a coaching standpoint, you love players like that, to where if you try to get on them, they're like, Coach, I know, my bad. That's on me. And he has that type of mentality. I think he's going to be great this year. He had a great rookie season, capped it off with a Super Bowl.
Postseason.
You know what I mean? Like the postseason. Like,
he was amazing.
What he was doing against the Commanders in that game, against Terry, everything, like, it got to a point where it felt like Jayden, if it wasn't Terry, Jayden didn't want to even test him by throwing at him. And I understood that. Like, if it's not my star guy, I'm not putting wide receiver 2, 3, or 4 and throwing the ball to that guy. No, I'm good. I'll wait till it's best on best, and I'll go ahead and attack it there. But let's transition into a guy that had a solid rookie year for the Indianapolis Colts, and that is Laiatu Latu, the edge rusher for the Indianapolis Colts, a guy who they drafted, pick 14, I believe? 15, right? Yeah, 15. Pick 15 in 2024. And, had a solid season last year. On the season, 595 snaps. And crazy thing about it, guys, he only started one game out of 17 that he played. He did not start. He was not a starter for them for most of the season, right? So 351 pass rush reps 4 sacks, which is a half a sack behind the defensive rookie of the year that we talked about episode or 2 ago. Jared Verse, he had 42 quarterback pressures. His pressure percentage in terms of his tied to his actual pass rush reps, he created a pressure on 12% of his pass rush reps. And this is a guy that, again, only 4 sacks. Coming out, right? One of the things that we knew about him, I personally feel like the movie Karate Kid was about Laiatu Latu because his hands are ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, it's every time I'm sitting there watching him and the cross chop, and I'm just hear Misty Miyagi in the back of my head. It's like wax on, wax off, and it's like his hands are so educated. They're so he throws them with such timing and pace and rhythm and everything. And I think with his first step, his bend, we saw it down at the Senior Bowl last year too, right? Like he can drop his anchor. He can lower his pad level to get underneath punches. That's why, we talk about with, I think Olu Fashanu on our first episode, offensive lineman, any offensive lineman I talk to is a prospect. I say, hey, your hands, it's good to be on time or late. Don't be early. It's because you face a guy like Latu and you're early. Oh, he's getting underneath them hands and he's cornering because he has that lateral agility and the hip fluidity to sink, drive, and turn the corner. So his ability to get to the quarterback with finesse, it's already in the bag. It's honestly he has one of the best finesse pass rush repertoires in the league, right? That quickness, the bend, all of that. Where he can take that next step for me, Dan, because they used him in multiple ways. They even pulled him off the line of scrimmage and let him kind of hover, like the old school amoeba defense, where he's just moving around and then trying to pick his spots, and then he's able to create pressure and not just create pressure. Like there was a rep against the Bears where he should have had a sack. Caleb Williams is just Caleb Williams. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just Caleb. He was the first overall pick for a reason. His ability to get out of trouble is insane. And you just saw the quickness in terms of how he won when they played the Colts, and Laramie Tunsil, one of the better left tackles in the league for a very long time in his career. I'm pretty sure he put Laramie Tunsil on his face with the cross chop. And I was just like, goodness, like his ability to get to the quarterback quickly it's innate. It's top tier. But he has to improve the functional strength. Like, that's why I want to see, because, like, we talked about, was it Jeff Schwartz, I think, that made the quote or the comment, either Jeff or Mitchell, was like, hey, being fast, being explosive around the edge is fine, but you strike fear in offensive tackles when you can bull through them, right? Like Jared Verse, when you can put your hand in and long arm a guy to the quarterback and they can't anchor because you got full control of them, that's terrifying for an offensive tackle. Yes, the speed is one thing because they have to get out a little early. But if you don't have power, I can tell my tackles to jump set you and take the wind out of your pass rush before you get going. So it's like, okay, if you're a speed rush guy only, an outside rush guy only, I'm going to tell my guy to jump set with a diagonal set, get out there, cut that space off from you, get hands on, and kill the rep. Just immediately shut it down. He has, to me, that's where he's going to really unlock his game, is adding that bull rush consistently, adding that long arm consistently, going speed to power, Dan. If he can start doing that more consistently, because at the end of the day, you just want to give, the same way a mobile quarterback gives defenses something else to be worried about. Okay, this guy's accurate. Great. But you know what? Josh Allen can also stiff arm my 330-pound nose tackle and run for 40 yards down the field. Pat Mahomes is one of the most elusive quarterbacks we've probably ever seen in the pocket. Lamar Jackson, it's not much to say. He's Lamar Jackson. He's a receiver at quarterback with his movements. Those guys give you something to think about other than just throwing the football. As a pass rusher, you need to be able to give tackles more things to think about, because then they have to figure out, all right, how am I going to approach this set if he goes out wide, but now he can rush back inside with a double hand swipe or a long arm over, or just converts speed to power? He might have me dead to rights.
Exactly. We talk about guys that want to be able to pressure, but when we look at some of these rushers that have an advanced pass rush bag, it's not just about having the bag; it's about having the tools to sequence as well as being able to go through. Now, I liken sequencing to a pitcher. If you want to strike a batter out, you go high, right? You got 1 and 2. It's a ball and 2 strikes. You throw a fastball high, just about above the chest, right? You want to throw now a slider or a curveball to drop it in there to hit that strikeout. That's what these pass rushers are doing. They're trying to sequence, and that's one of the things that I really think he needs to improve upon. Is even though I think you can see some of the explosiveness, he only had 9 quick pressures last year out of his 39 total. He was a workman pressure guy. He was getting there late. And that's what you didn't necessarily want from him. It's good to see. It's obviously great to see, but you draft him to be a quick pass rush guy with his hands and some of that explosive, specifically the lateral explosiveness that we saw. So when you can't go speed to power on the outside, like you said, it's just something that the tackles will take away. And when you can, it's okay, we can't just get into our pass set and wait. Because if we wait, guess what? We're on our heels, and he's just going to bowl right through us. And that's exactly what a guy like Jared Verse or the elite of the elite guys can do. If they know that you're just going to wait for them, they're going to go right through you. And you saw Laiatu try, and he just couldn't do it all the time. And not just that, some of the hand location be up on the shoulder pads, and it would fall off, and that's where you lose your power too, and you get swallowed up. There was a rep from actually Garrett Bowles of the Denver Broncos had a really nice fake hand where he was early with his hand, but he pulled it out really quickly to get the hand usage. And that's another thing too. If a tackle knows that you're going to win with your hands, well, let me get you to flash them early so I can just clamp down on you because you don't have a counter power through that. So I was actually more impressed with him as a run defender than I expected to. The football IQ showed up. You saw him get off of misdirection. You saw him follow the football well and also fight through late in some of these blocks. He was blocked by a lot of tight ends, a lot of tight ends as well. So you have to take that into consideration. You saw that a lot from every team blocking him, and the fact that he wasn't a starter, he's still working his way. He also had a hip injury for the first few games in the season. So we have to add some context to, I think, some of the overall struggles when you're not on the field all the time. You're also working back from an injury. He still has neck issues to think about because that was one of the reasons he originally retired from football altogether, but he is back and we see all that happen. But just for him, I think that last year was a good showcase for him because for a guy that should predominantly win quickly, the fact that he was winning late and able to get some pressures and some sacks based off that. He forced 3 fumbles last year too with his ability to get to the quarterback and just kind of look at that football. So that's something that he can continue to work on and get better. But I was a little disappointed in his ability to win quickly, something that I wanted to see a little bit more. But that's where you talk about the ability to win with power will aid you in the ability to win quick, because if you can go through a guy, he's not going to jump set you and take it away. He's going to short set, and then he's going to have to guess. Then that's where the quickness comes in around the corner to be able to use that athleticism, that bend. But you did see, that lateral cross chop, Euro step that he has. It's when he hits it, man, it is so much fun to watch. There's a lot of ceiling there for him too. I'm excited to see what he does.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask, do you think, in a shortcoming standpoint, do you feel like he's a little too reliant on that cross chop? He throws it a lot. Like, he throws it a lot. And veteran offensive tackles, if they watch the film, if you're playing them in week 14, they watch the previous 13 games, and they're like, man, he threw that cross chop about 40 to 50% of his pass rush reps. That's the move that they're going to be prepared for more times than not. Do you think, when you watched him, did you feel like he relied on it just a little bit too much?
Yeah, and a guy like Garrett Bowles took advantage of it because if you can flash the hand early, you bring down that cross chop or the hand usage, and then you attack because
you force him to shoot it.
Exactly. It's the same way we see with speed rushers around the edge. If you force a tackle to get out there, then you're dictating the point. If you know he's coming with a cross chop, just throw your inside hand. It was honestly a really nice job from Bowles to see as soon as he committed a little bit too much around the edge. So boom, bring it in now. And then he's just took over. So when you are reliant as much as he is on one pass rush move, you have to mix it up. And again, that's where sequencing comes in, because if you can get those tackles to say, okay, he's going to the cross chop, bring an inside counter, jab your outside leg outside, kind of fake the cross chop, and then use the swim and come in that way.
Yeah.
That way you have some of the inside counters he does need to work on too. All the tools, the hands, the quickness, the athleticism, I think are all there. It's fine tuning, right? That's what you need. Unfortunately for him, if he does not develop a real power move, he still might be very limited from an ability to win quickly because of the way his tackles can kind of limit him in the NFL.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at what the Colts have in terms of the edge rush heading into this season, you got Latu, you have Kwity Paye, who I believe will be coming up on the contract. They drafted JT Tuimoloau, the edge rusher from Ohio State, and they got Samson Ebukam. I think JT is truly probably the replacement for Kwity Paye because the way that they win is very similar: power, strength, bull rush, trying to overwhelm you.
Bigger.
And yeah, he's bigger. So and truthfully, like that's where you have a fastball type of guy in Latu, and then you have the power, right? The wrecking ball type of archetype and style of JT, of Kwity Paye, of those guys. The thing with the Colts is I want them to, because I think this is also going to help Latu take that step. Be a 4-quadrant pass rush unit. You run 4-man fronts, and you're trying to get to C.J. Stroud. You're trying to get to probably we don't know what's going to happen with Anthony Richardson. That shoulder starting the shoulders messing with him again after having the surgery in 2023. I'm sorry. So like we don't know if they don't have a timetable for him. It might be Daniel Jones. We all know Daniel Jones wilters under pressure. Like if whoever you're getting at, Trevor Lawrence, whatever, you need to be able to close every door on the offensive line. So I want my edge rushers to crash the edge. I want my interior guys to push the pocket into the lap of the quarterback. Give them no way out. Only the elite guys, the top tier guys are going to be able to make those throws. So are physically gifted, like the Mahomes, the Allens, the Lamars.
Yeah.
Even Burrow's not the most physically gifted guy, but he still can throw from muddy pockets, right? We've seen C.J. Stroud do it and everything like that. But if you're dealing with a guy like a Brock Purdy, maybe a Bryce Young, a Tua Tagovailoa, a Matt Jones, those guys don't really fare that well when you close every single wall of the pocket on them. That's when they're not able to be as effective as they want to be and as they could be in a clean pocket. So that's what you need to do. And I think if they start doing that to where now he's just getting pure one-on-ones because that interior defensive line is just collapsing. The opposite edge, whether it's – because I think with the addition of JT, you might see either JT or Kwity Paye reduced down into one of those interior defensive line spots on those 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 12s, and now you're able to really pressure the quarterback. I think if they're able to do that, man, I mean, because when you look at going to their like I said, using PFF, looking at their chart here in terms of the starting defense on those nickel situations, yes, you got right now they have Ebukam. You got Latu, Ebukam, Kwity Paye as the edge rushers. You got Grover Stewart as a defensive tackle and DeForest Buckner, right? You have the pieces on that defensive front, and that's not even taking into account JT Tuimoloau. So I think there's a lot that he can improve on, and like you said, he's got to add the power. He has to add it, Dan, because if he doesn't add it, you become a one-trick pony. You become a guy that's going to be reliant on speed, hand usage, quickness, which are good things to have. But if a guy can sit on that, right? It's like playing basketball. If you can't drive with both of your hands, they're going to sit. You watch the Boston Celtics play. Teams that really start to slow their offense down when they're not hitting threes and Jaylen Brown has the ball, they're sitting on his right hand and forcing him to dribble left. He can't dribble left, so they force him to dribble left. So it's those type of things. You don't want to handicap yourself in the NFL because that's when offensive line coaches, offensive period, are say, okay, let's sit on that outside shoulder. Let's not allow him around the edge. Make him work through you. Make him work around you and work back inside. And if you can't do that, then you won't be as effective. And truly, you probably won't be a starter much at all in the league. You might end up falling into that DPR role, that designated pass rusher role. And we didn't draft you at 14 for that. I think that he's going to get better, but he's got to improve his power.
Yeah, if he's not going to improve his power, there's obviously success stories to that. Watch a lot of Trey Hendrickson tape. Watch a lot of that. I'm not saying he's not powerful at all. He does have some speed to power,
Yeah.
but he wins predominantly on the quickness around the edge because it sets those guys up. If you can be that explosive off the edge, you can add that extra dynamic to your game because I think he's got a good first step. I don't think it's elite by any stretch.
Right.
If he can get that better, if you just want to kind of lean into that part, and then just be more explosive off the edge and get to those inside counters, then we can have a conversation. That's totally okay. And you can see it funneling through him and with the hand usage and the lateral agility he has, that he could become that. But if that's not the way you want to win, become more multiple. Have more ways to sequence. And when you can do that, you give those guys more things to think about so they can't just sit on the, he's coming around the edge. He's going to cross chop me here. He's going to do the same thing. I think the Colts did a good job of doing more with him and moving him around, reducing him inside from time to time, being the slasher on a stunt, the looper on a stunt. You saw them use him a lot of different ways, which is all really nice. But when it comes to just being the edge, the wide 9 or close to a 7, you have to be able to win inside, outside. And I thought from a general standpoint, he relied too much on the outside. So going into year 2, hopefully he plays a full season. And again, if he's going to be probably the starter alongside Kwity Paye early on. Maybe he should be at least right now. We're slotted to see. We'll kind of see how that goes in camp because I do think he did a good job as a run defender, seeing the football, able to, really good backside pursuit as well. It was hard for teams to run away from him because he would try to run it back. So there's a lot to work with here. I want to see the shape he comes into camp at, and if he can even just early on showcase more of that power, we have something really we can build on in year 2.
Absolutely, man. So, guys, that is our show talking about Quinyon Mitchell, the soon-to-be star corner. We probably already call him a star corner for the Philadelphia Eagles over there with Cooper DeJean. And then Laiatu Latu, the young edge rusher for the Indianapolis Colts, a young man that we believe has a very high ceiling, but he's just got to add some other pieces, some other things to his bag. I think he has the bag. Now he needs some other accessories to put in to the bag. And if he does that, man, sky is truly the limit. But again, guys, I'm Dame. That is Dan. And this is the Scouting Room NFL podcast. And guys, we are here every single week breaking down young players. We've been really talking about guys from the 2024 NFL draft class, and we'll have more on next week's episode as well. Maybe we get into Cooper DeJean and talk about whether or not that outstanding rookie year he had. What can, matter of fact, let's talk Cooper DeJean. Look at the Detroit Lions, Terry Arnold as well, right? Look at these young corners and see what is happening, for them in their respective defenses, where they can be better. We'll talk about that on the next episode. But guys, go subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the Scouting Room NFL podcast with Dame and Dan. I'm Dame, and that's Dan.